Thanks, Fergal and Karen. As I think Fergal said there in the summary comments, we probably don't comprehend the wide range of supports and services provided within the prison system, but also in conjunction with other agencies and bodies. And I did get first-hand sight or knowledge of that on a recent visit with Karen and Fergal into Mountjoy, and see the very challenging circumstances in which their staff work. And we, again, would like to pass on our thanks to all of your teams in the prison services as well. Thank you. So our next three speakers are going to stay at the top table as they deliver. And Sheila Connelly is the CEO of the Cork Alliance, with our colleagues Brian O'Sullivan and Keith Purcell. So it'll be a kind of shared piece between the three, and I'll lead over to Sheila to commence the process over the next 16, 17 minutes. Thank you, Sheila.
Hi everybody. This mic, yeah, I can hear myself now talk as well. Thank you very much to the Assembly for inviting us to talk. The Cork Alliance Centre started 21 years ago yesterday. I started in the position to set up a centre that was a response to recidivism, was a response to the revolving door that prisons had in Cork. That it was seen and understood by the prison service and the probation service that we needed to do more, that we needed to provide extra supports for people that weren't being addressed, particularly because of this extra stigma of being in prison. And I think if you look at the pictures there, all the people we meet have a commonality with everybody in this room. What they want is a house, a job, a friend, a family. Nobody who started in prison, who is in prison today, started with any other intention in their life other than that. Nobody wakes up at the age of 3, 4 or 5 and say, I want to be a good criminal. I want to be in prison. That's not the intention. The intention is to have a good life, to have a happy life, and to have what we hear all of the time in our office, peace of mind. Recovery gives you peace of mind, but you don't get that without support. So we are this support, considering when justice has been done and has been seen to be done to include to imprison people. Unfortunately, in Ireland, sometimes prison saves lives. It's not it's the reality of our world, because we're not providing enough community resources, enough community options. But for us, we know, and an awful lot of men and women that we work with, as well as the interruption that prison puts in their lives, as well as the difficulties and the multiple challenges that brings to children, to their families, to their homelessness situation, to their addictions as well. But sometimes it can save lives. Sometimes it can just let things stop because it's a safe space. And when you look at that quote from the Clean Slate Cork research, which Keith was a part of, when you don't feel wanted or loved, you turn to drink, drugs, substances for your comfort blanket. And unfortunately, when you're from a socially disadvantaged area, when you don't have resources, when you don't have social capital, when you don't have other means, crime then can become a means of actually supporting your addiction. We know people who have done bad things. We don't know bad people. We know people in addiction. We don't know addicts. We know people that is part of their life. They are more than the sum of their convictions. They are more than the sum of their addictions. They have way more to offer. They have way more roles to live in life. If you look here, if we talk about people, we talk about them being somebody's son, somebody's father, daughter, mother, sister. They are connected people. But unfortunately, drink, drugs, addiction breaks those connections, causes a disconnect. And we disconnect from ourselves, and we disconnect from our families and our community. We end up in crime. And if you know you're there, and if you know you're there in prison, and you're trying to find your steps out of it, you need a one-stop shop. You need a central resource of continuity of care from prison into the community, and for as long as that takes. And for us in Cork, that's what we've got through the Cork Alliance Centre. I think the slides you'll have got, I'll throw some of them up throughout the piece, but I think, you know, some of the quotes that our people have given us have come through different research that has come up through Cork and through research that, or through comments that our own people have made when we've asked them about what they would like to share here. But I think there's some telling comments, particularly in relation to courts, when sometimes people feel that the system thinks that they don't have feelings, but we do. There isn't a day that doesn't go by that I don't have remorse. When we get time to space to think and survive, we connect with this. But how do you recover out of that? And you only recover out of that through relationships and trusting relationships into recovery. And you have to find that in consistent people. And consistent people that the prison service allows us into the prison to work with people, to meet them in advance of their release and to stay with them back into the community. And I think, like, when you talk about what that support can be, you know, I think that piece of, you can see this here, somebody went out, when they were asked about it in the research that Dr. Graham Cambridge did in Cork on recovery, that's already been mentioned, that there's that piece of, once I got support, they stayed with me, and that I didn't look back. I got that continuity of care. That was the links into the addiction services, the links into the therapy, because all of this is based in trauma. But if they've got consistent supports and somebody with them, walking shoulder to shoulder with somebody when you're doing this in a respectful and trusting space, change can happen. I think these are some of the quotes of people in relation to what they get when they come into our centre and what that sense feels like. And maybe Brian or Keith will talk to what their experience has been. I'm very fortunate, and Brian and Keith are both, while they have both been used our centre in the past, they are now colleagues and work in. Brian and myself are involved in the Training Prison Officers project with the Irish Prison Service, and Keith and myself, Keith is a drugs worker in the city now. So we co-work with clients together. So life has changed greatly.
Yeah, you just said it there, Sheila, like, prison saved my life. Do you know, prison was a safe place for me at times. Do you know, when I was in prison, like, I'd walk. I was never in trouble in prison. Do you know, my life was manageable in prison. And I've walked, I've been on time, do you know. I've always done the right things and made the right choices in prison, you know. And I met prison officers that would have actually kind of gave me the right direction, do you know. That I'd say, sure, you'd either go the easy way. I remember one prison officer saying to me, you either go the easy way or the hard way, like, do you know. And I asked him for a job, and he gave me a trial that day, do you know. And from that day onwards, do you know, I walked, do you know. And when I came out of prison, my life was unmanageable. When I came out the gate, that's where my life kind of went up, kind of. When I came out the gate of the prison, you know, I didn't either go drinking. I wanted to be a good father. I wanted to be a husband, you know. I had all these things in prison, you know. I had guilt, I had shame, you know. The minute I went out that gate, I'll have a few drinks, and, you know, before I know it, I'd have 2 or 3 drinks and gone back into that same situation again. I had no supports, no direction, you know. And like we brought up about trauma, you know. I ran away from home when I was young. I left school at an early age, you know. School wasn't for me at the time, you know. And I couldn't read and I couldn't write, you know. And I was getting in trouble in school for that. And there was letters being sent home as well, you know. So I was being in trouble at home as well. So I was getting it both ways. And I ended up then from there, you know, running away from home, because it would have been easier, do you know. I felt more safer outside, do you know. And eventually I ended up going into prison sentence. My first prison sentence was I started off sniffing and things like that, and then eventually I was surviving. That's what I was doing, you know. And eventually started kind of progress, and then I went into prison then up in Pats when I was 16, and I felt safe in there. I had a bed, warm bed, you know. And I ended up going from there to Shannon, and before I know it, I was there that one night and I was gone the next morning. I ran. I was always running. I was running since I was a child. Do you know, and like when I came out this time, do you know, in 2017, I was introduced to Cork Alliances, and that's when my life started changing. Do you know, like that. I was through the homelessness. I was in the streets. Do you know, I was always doing wrong things and making wrong choices. You know, I was there. My kids are better off without me. Do you know, my family's better off without me. I'm doing all the wrong things. You know, but eventually I was delighted that I was introduced to Cork Alliances, and they helped me build a relationship, not only with myself, but build a relationship with my kids, my family. Support me through going to college, you know, courses. Cork Alliances has actually saved my life, you know, and I can't ask so much for it.
Thanks, Keith.
Thank you very much. And Sheila. Sheila just said 6. You're okay, but
Yeah,
you have
no.
6 minutes just to keep it all going.
I think one of the things that's interesting is that 10 years ago, I suppose we've always been supported by the probation service for the last 21 years, and then 10 years ago the prison service came to us to see if we would pilot a project in relation to early release. That when we look at the revolving door, when we look at people coming out, when the prisons are very crowded, and you know, you could easily have a 2-man cell where there's somebody else on the floor, and how do we address that? The prison asked us to pilot, and we piloted a project that's now rolled out nationally. That's a community sentence support scheme, where people who are serving their sentence of under 18 months, they can serve it in the community with us, and they can complete a sentence if they put a plan together, if we work out what supports they need, if we've got accommodation in place for them, if we make sure that they've got their local community needs. Invariably what was happening when people are coming out of prison, or if the prison was overcrowded, it's somebody walks in, pack your kit, you're gone. That doesn't work, because then you're coming out, your anxiety is gone, you don't know where you're going. It could be a Friday evening, it could be anything. So they stood in to address that. So in Cork, like, nobody is released on a Friday, because we've got a plan, we've got a space to actually build in time for it. But we've also under the CSS scheme, we've got a space to help people link with their local resources. They have the support of the Cork Alliance Centre to explore how they do that, and both Keith and Brian would have worked with us initially to complete their sentence in the community, and then they would have stayed with us to continue that longer process and that longer therapeutic space and that longer point of getting into treatment and coming out of treatment. And I suppose when we look at therapy and the trauma that is needed, because there's trauma in everybody's lives, this is not something that can be solved in a 3-month treatment programme or a 1-month treatment programme. This is years of work. It's taken years of work for people to end up with the trauma and the heartbreak and the brokenness that they have when we meet them. It takes years to come out of this. But as you can see today, the men that are in front of me, I'm proud to call them my friends, I'm proud to know them, and I'm proud to be able to work alongside them.
And Sheila, and just conscious, want to do justice to Brian as well, so we've 3 minutes, so we can.
Like Keith, you know, I had a lot of addiction problems. You know, I was addicted to cannabis, benzos, alcohol, cocaine, heroin, crack cocaine. Constantly getting into trouble because of my addiction. In and out of the prison service for small, stupid sentences. That was all down to trying to feed my own habit. And I just could not get myself clean, you know, long enough to. I just couldn't hold on to it, you know. I was on a methadone program, and it was just every time I got out, it was just so hard, you know. I was involved with the homeless service in the city, but like that, I was introduced to Cork Alliance while in prison, and I got out on the scheme, and I suppose it was the first port to call when you get out of prison that you have somewhere to go, and it was another support network, you know, because oftentimes I got put out of prison with just an hour's notice, and you don't know where to go, so you're going straight to the Cork Simon community or St. Vincent's Hostel, and in my case, I was going from bad to worse. So like that, with the help of Cork Alliance, I got assessment for treatment in County Carlow and St. Francis Farm, and I grabbed it with both hands, and that was nearly almost 4 years ago now. I've never touched anything since. I wouldn't even take a painkiller off, but and like that since then, my life's just done a full 360, you know. I have a lot of great things going for me today, you know. I do a lot of work with Sheila here in Cork Alliance. I do a lot of stuff around recovery in Cork City itself. You know, I think if someone wants this and the support and service from, especially coming out of prison, it's there for everybody. You know, it really is. It's not easy. It's not like, and addiction is all around us, and I think every family can relate to it in some shape or form. You know, it doesn't just have to be, oh, you're addicted to hard drugs. There's a number of drugs you can be addicted to, and alcohol as well. Like, yeah, it's.
But I think that's
My hardest job as chairman is cutting people's lived experiences time, and it's really. You can hear the silence, you can hear a pin drop in the room when you guys talk and share your personal experience. So I just firstly want to say we really appreciate you sharing your experiences, Brian and Keith. It makes so much informed for us in terms of this process. So Sheila, in 1 minute, I need you to any summary messages, and we will have time in a panel discussion.
I think for us it's that space of how do we create something other than a reliance on punishment and sanctions. How do we create a more effective way of actually responding to people? Sorry, there's my alarm going off. You stop that one, please. What can we do? And it's in the relationship, it's in how we connect with people, and that's you know, I've known people for over 20 years, and they might still be in and out of the centre. But that's okay, because as you saw there, some people talked about our place being like family. And when you don't have that resource to you, you need somebody who absolutely loves seeing you. I have a job where I absolutely love going in every single day, where I actually get I would hand on heart say I have the best job in Cork and possibly in Ireland. I absolutely eat, sleep and drink it, because I'm in a centre where there's hope, where there's kindness, where there's love, where there's compassion, where there's understanding, and where there's a huge amount of change. And when you're allowed into people's lives, when people allow you in the most brokenness of times to be allowed to help, when things are most difficult, to be allowed to be there with people and to be trusted with that is one of the most honourable things that people can let you do in their lives. Sure. And I think that's the piece of success. Success for us is when somebody comes in the door, because that's not easy. And success is when they come back and recommend to more people.
I'm just conscious there's other speakers, and we will have more time in this discussion.